first speaker today. Looks like our first speaker today will be Denise Carol. And looks like Amanda has entered her information here for us. And Denise will be presenting her final speech from the 6-week Speechcraft workshop that they just got done with. Denise is sharing information from a recent article from the publication The Atlantic titled "Fatigue Can Shatter a Person." The title of the speech is Effects of Long COVID. So the time is 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me welcome Denise Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, valued Toastmasters, and the other guest. Long COVID is not over. So really, COVID is not over for people living with long COVID. Let me tell you about my friend Courtney. Courtney and I used to run together almost every weekend in Ohio, in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. She's younger than me, she's faster than me, she's stronger than me. One weekend, she even ran 100 miles from start to finish in the same day. Courtney is an amazing woman. She is determined, she is strong, she is fast, and she's been living with the effects of long COVID now for 3 years, and it has negatively impacted her life in many ways. Courtney recently shared this article with me, and so what I'd like to do now is to share some of the highlights with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So the fatigue that these long COVID patients are living with is the most common and most disabling of long COVID symptoms. And it's also similar to the chronic illness, more commonly called chronic fatigue syndrome. But it's distinctly different from the weariness that we without long COVID feel. It both weighs the body down, but it also revs the body up at the same time. So these long COVID patients feel both wired and tired. Their fatigue often turns in everyday tasks into a cost-benefit analysis. For example, well, if I do the laundry now, how long is it going to be until I can make dinner? 25% of people living with long COVID are severely limited to their daily tasks. Normal fatigue for us is temporary. We feel better after we sleep. But people living with long COVID wake up fatigued. There's really 3 elements in our bodies that are affected by long COVID. One is cognitive, the other is physiological, and certainly energy. For cognitive, oftentimes their thoughts are sluggish, feel incoherent, and even pain in their head. Physiologically, all of their symptoms burn more fiercely and new symptoms ignite. Their energy is labeled as post-exertional malaise, also called PEM, and that is the defining effect. Here's some additional facts and theories about long COVID. It's true, our American society often equates productivity with worth. Yet if they're not being productive because of their fatigue, they feel devalued. Doctors and loved ones often default to disbelief because they just can't believe that this person that used to be so energetic now has no energy. Researchers are looking for answers. They can't stop the effects of long COVID, at least yet. Most medical professionals don't even learn about post-exertional malaise when they're studying to be a doctor. Insurance often won't pay for their doctor bills because there's still a lack of objective data. These patients are often misdiagnosed. They're told they're too sedentary when in fact they need more rest. Women are also disproportionately affected. And there's no unified theory, but there are two possibilities that might exist. Both of these possibilities, or really problems, have to do with the autonomic nervous system. In the first column, you'll see that when the COVID virus invades the body, the immune system counteracts and triggers inflammation. That inflammation damages the mitochondria, which is what powers our cells throughout our body. Those affected cells then produce other violent chemicals and more cellular damage occurs. Another possibility is that the size and or regions of people living with long COVID, their brains might be a potential source. Their blood vessels, their red blood cells, and clotting happens. So that's a concern. The hope is, though, that some long haulers do recover. Research, though, is still underfunded. No cure currently exists. Most doctors don't know how to treat it, so they stabilize people instead of curing it. Over-the-counter supplements are recommended, anti-inflammatory meds. There is the possibility of a new app coming out called Visible, which helps to spot patterns of illness in these patients. One of the quotes in the article from someone living with long COVID is this: "It takes so much self-control and strength to do less, be less, to shrink yourself down to one or two things that might bring you joy just in order to survive." So what are my intentions of sharing this with you today? First of all, it's awareness. I wasn't aware until I read this article that Courtney shared with me. And so I'm hoping you'll be more aware as a result, so that my first action was to share this information with you. But I plan to do more, because once we're aware and choose to do something about it, there's a greater chance that we're going to get quicker and more effective results for these patients that continue to live with chronic fatigue. There are resources in Arizona, the Arizona Health Information Network, also Banner Health. Both ASU and U of A are doing research studies. So there's more to come. And based on this article by Ed Young of The Atlantic in July of this year, we together need a happy ending for people living with long COVID. And I hope that you'll decide to take some action also. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Denise. All right, so Mr. Timer, can we get a minute on the timer, please, while people ponder and write down some of their thoughts about Denise's presentation today?
It's time.
All right, thank you. Second speaker, can we start with the recording, please?